that the condition of statelessness is not one of being a victim, but a precondition for redefining our understanding of politics and practice of democracy, of that good idea in particular. Let me turn to our first speaker now. Birgitta Jónsdóttir, Icelandic MP of the Pirate Party, the Icelandic Modern Media Initiative, and co-founder of WikiLeaks. In 2010, Jónsdóttir and the Icelandic Modern Media Initiative successfully led a law proposal through the Icelandic Parliament, proposing that Iceland should, and I quote, strongly position itself legally with regard to the protection of freedoms of expression and information, unquote. Birgitta, the floor is yours.
Very happy to be here among so many amazing people and to witness the birth of democracy in so many different states and parts of the world. I just want to say I'm not one of the co-founders of WikiLeaks. I was just one of the 5 volunteers when the big leaks came in. Thought we were thousands, but we're just a few. Anyway, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my background, which is just a testament to the fact that individuals not only can change the world, individuals have the responsibility to change the world. And I know that there are many, many individuals in this room that share my idea about this. So basically, I'm a poetician. I'm not a politician, so that is clear. I'm a poet first, last, and I will die as a poet. For me, it has never been clearer that we need more people that think like an artist to enter into the system, because the system really needs us to think or transform it. But I'm also an activist, and the last thing I ever wanted in my life was to become a member of parliament. I never had that politician resting in my belly. But I felt, when we had the 4th largest financial collapse in the world in Iceland in 2008, that I needed to figure out how can we fix our broken democracy, how can we fix our broken state. And so I not only organized protests, I also was a member of an informal think tank that consisted of very different people. It was in the academia, like the sort of the grassroots academia, and we called it the academia think tank. And I thought it was a little bit funny because I'm completely self-educated. I don't have patience for formal academic training, nor can I. Anyway, so we came down to the conclusion, which I think is very important in this context, that, and this was, way before there were any pirate parties to speak of, that we came to the conclusion that the only way to change our system was to have the people of Iceland write a constitution for themselves. We didn't want to carry on having like a recycled Danish constitution. Thank you very much, Denmark, but we've had it for 70 years and it just doesn't fit us. We are a country that gained its independence 70 years ago from Denmark. We have done all the same mistakes that most new democracies do. We have tried to model ourselves into a democracy model that doesn't work. And I say it doesn't work because I'm inside the system, and I tell you I have never disrespected law as much as after I knew how they were made. And so, I don't believe in the rule of law. It works. It's written for the 1% to abuse the 99%. So I'm trying to think, what can we do? And I think, and I know that talking about what sort of society we want to be, what sort of social agreement do we want, comes from the constitutional agreement we make. And we shouldn't wait for the state to allow us to do it. We should do it, because it's the only way to find out what sort of people we are. And you know, as much as I love the stateless states and that we don't have any states, you have to understand that I'm a pragmatic anarchist. And so it's a bit bizarre for me to be inside the system, but how are we going to give people power if nobody is willing to go inside the belly of the beast and make sure the laws are changed so people have the power? So we are here in, like, you know, in the old Europe, where, you know, democracy has been made into a mockery, where it is like dictatorship with many heads, that we are allowed to vote for different heads appearing on it every 4 years, and then be, you know, if we even bother to do it, because we don't have any faith in that system, because, you know, you vote every 4 years and nothing changes. We had, you know, we made a new constitution in Iceland, buy-in for the people of Iceland in the wake of the crisis. And guess who killed it? Guess who put it in coma? The same fucking people that are in my parliament, you know. They don't want to let go of power, and that is the problem with power. Once you have it, it is so hard to let go. And so you have to, when you are like, and to be honest, I've created 2 parties. I love the concept of the Pirate Party, but I'm not married to the idea of parties, because they're part of the problem. They become institutions, and they become a little bit like, you know, Church of Scientology. and that is, I don't want to be a part of that. And so, yeah, so this was just a little bit of an introduction. So, but, you know, and I want to say to all these really brave and courageous people that are struggling for independence, please don't make the same mistakes that we have done. Do not try to model us. Do something new. Think of power as a circle, not a pyramid. You know, we all agree that democracy is the model that we want to try to live in, right? Some sort of democracy. Rule of the people. Democracy means that. But the implementation of it is that we have allowed it to be stolen from us. How much power do we have? Nobody ever took my power away. I have my power. Nobody's ever going to take my power away. Do not let them tell you, Scotland, that you don't have your power. Because you do. They can't take it away from you, ever. And the same applies with our constitution in Iceland. I mean, it's so beautiful. I've read it, the intro to it, twice in the parliament and wept. You know, it's like a beautiful poem, such a beautiful dream of the future. And it's still there, you know. Nobody's going to take that from us. And so I'm saying, you know, if we want to have a stateless state, it begins in ourselves. All the borders and boundaries we place inside ourselves are then reflected in society. And that's one of the things I noticed when we had the crisis. You know, it was exactly like a crisis when somebody dies in your life, or you break up, or your dog dies, or whatever. And so you go through the same process. So I realized that society is only a reflection of us. It is not separated. It is a living entity of who we are. And so we have to know who we are. And we have to figure out who we are together. And we do that by having meetings like this. Thank you very much, Jonas and everybody else in this team, to facilitate this space, this incredible space. And so, you know, I come from, like, my country is not Iceland, really. And it's cyberspace. It's this internet space that I discovered in '95, and I absolutely fell in love with it. You know, you imagine living on an island stuck with 320,000 people. It gets very claustrophobic, I tell you. And then you realize, okay, so I am the freak, the Sputnik that nobody understands. You know, I'm going to be very bitter when I grow up. And then I discovered the internet, and I was one of the first poets to publish my stuff there, and I learned to code, and I really agree that code is really poetry, and it allowed me to connect with other poets, with other people, and the people that were reading my stuff. And it was instantaneous, and it was beautiful. And it allowed me to travel all over the world and meet other people that were like-minded, and I didn't have to leave home. It's amazing. You know, you're stuck on an island with a monopoly on the, the airline company. It's very expensive to get away. And so you just, it was just so liberating. And then I discovered that because we are so interconnected there, that I became a part of the tribe. I call us the tribe. So we are a bit like the Roma people. We are the people that understand the importance of the internet and that it is the last remaining free world. And it is being industrialized and destroyed. And this is sort of how I got into discovering why I was a pirate. And not in the Somalian sense of the word, but like a Pirate Bay pirate. And I realized, I've never been able, like, it's very difficult for me to see a democracy, like I've been thinking so much about what the hell is democracy, and it's very difficult for me to see it function without three core pillars, which I really love. One is access to information, another one is privacy. And I tell you, if anybody here hears somebody say, we have to write new laws to protect our digital persona, or our privacy, it's not really necessary, because in every state that I know of, privacy is a part of the Constitution, the right to privacy. It's a part of the UN Declaration of Human Rights. It's a part of all sorts of international agreements. So why is it not executed? And this is why I don't believe in laws anymore, because we have all these really neat things and nobody really honors it. And it's impossible to write it into law to protect our privacy. But I can't promote digital democracy if people are not guaranteed privacy. We've heard here about really oppressive states. And so how can I encourage the people there to participate in online direct democracy if I can't guarantee their privacy? So, I mean, it's like critical that we inform and educate each other about how we can protect our privacy. And it is not going to happen through the state or the big brother. It is going to happen through us, through the people's movements. Today there's been a day, for encouraging the big powers in the world to, make sure that we deal with global warming. And it's been, of course, organized online. The biggest protest in human history, with like a joint protest all over the world, was the big protest before the Iraqi war. And that was the first digital organized protest movement. We nearly stopped it. And we're so often very nearly there, and then we give up. And when the war started, we stopped protesting, which is ironic, because that's really when the people in Iraq needed us to protest for them. We give up too easy. But by connecting and learning about success stories, about different forms of running our communities, we will eventually connect all the dots, like we did so nearly stop the Iraq war, like the Scots nearly got their independence, and like we nearly got our constitution. We have it there. So next crisis, I can't wait. I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I think that, this is the only time where you can have profound, deep change, when you have crisis. So I don't understand why people are not always ready with their, little legal packages. When they had 9/11, the guys that want to destroy us, they were ready with the Patriot Act. And there was nothing to counterbalance it, so there was no discussion. And so they used the shock and awe to shock us into cave into the fear. But in the times of crisis, you can also have the opportunity for real, profound, deep change. And I'm really pleased to tell you a little success story. When I got into Parliament, obviously everybody there were really scared of me because, it was somebody from the street, somebody that was out there protesting and banging pots and pans and shouting at them. And so they're like, oh, these dirty people are inside the Parliament. How disturbing. And And I pretended, I knew how things worked a little bit. I have to admit that I didn't know much how this really worked, and my intention was to go in there like a hacker to understand how the system works, and then tell you how you can fix it, if you want to, or at least witness it. My big disappointment is that people, they're not witnessing. You know, I'm like always shouting out to people inside, like, hey, can you just look at what we're doing in the parliament? We might be doing something awful and you're not witnessing. Anyway, so the good story is now I want you to sort of, after I've finished talking, I want you to feel that you can change things, because you can. And so I pretended I didn't know nothing, and I somehow managed to we started work on the Icelandic Modern Media Initiative, and I had people from WikiLeaks inside the Icelandic Parliament doing a workshop for all the parliamentarians about this great new parliamentary proposal that we want to do together. And everybody felt normal about it. I somehow still don't know really what happened, except we're in the crisis mode, so everything is possible. It's just after the collapse, I was quick enough because I worked on this law with people from all over the world to suck together all the best laws in the field of freedom of information, expression, and speech. And I got it through. Everybody said yes. It was amazing. And never happened before. A parliamentary proposal like this has been adopted that is sort of changing the course of Iceland to make Iceland into a safe haven for freedom of information, expression, and speech, and hopefully privacy. I'm not going to promise that, though. And if I can do that, you know, to somebody from the street, I mean, who's saying that anybody can't do that? You know, seriously, if I could do that. I was unemployed when I got this job. And I'm going to leave this job in 3 years, I promise myself. And so, I'm obsessed with two things. If we can get democracy to work, like the internet works, and the pirate parties are doing awesome things in trying to develop proxy voting and active voting and liquid democracy and blah, blah, blah. And so I know we have some academians here, and please do some studies on pros and cons of proxy liquid democracy things, because I'm slightly worried about that. I might be promoting something that's not been thoroughly tested. So we need some testing in that field in particular. But I'm not sure if, you know, I think we're in the state of transformation where anything can happen, anything is possible. And so I'm not sure if they will just eventually morph into something else. I'm not really concerned about that. I don't want to create the strong pirate parties in each country with an institution and 50 MPs or whatever. That's not my objective. My objective is to try to get people to care enough to co-create their communities. That is my only purpose, to give you the power that you already have legally. And finally, I'm sure that I've gone over my time. I always lose track of time. I haven't seen any desperate handshakes over there yet. So finally, I want you to just one project that you can do when you go back home or talk tonight or whatever. Think about the future. Think about what sort of society you would like to live in 20 years and what the society should be in 100 years for your kids and grandchildren. So talk about it, because I feel that no one person has this vision, but I think we have it collectively. Thank you very much.
But now let me introduce Lonneke van der Velde, who will offer a first response to your talk. Lonneke van der Velde is a PhD researcher at the Amsterdam School for Culture Analysis and the Digital Methods Initiative. Her work focuses on digital surveillance and technologies of activism. She was involved with Unlike Us, a nascent research network of artists, designers, scholars, activists, and programmers who work on alternatives in social media through workshops, conferences, online dialogues, and publications. Lonneke.
You explained very nicely how you find, like-minded people online. It's in that sense a transgression of boundaries. a way of escaping a local community. But at the same time, and this is also, I think, the kind of tribe that is informing the pirate parties and the philosophies of the pirate parties. At the same time, there are also some criticisms directed towards this tribe in the sense that the philosophies are summarized as being like techno-libertarian. So people are very passionate about privacy, the right for individual privacy, very passionate about freedom of speech, very passionate about the sharing of culture. However, and you see that also back in programs of the pirate parties. The pirate parties are very reformist with respect to intellectual property, but at the moment when it regards property issues or other kind of property than intellectual property, they are less outspoken. So I wondered whether you could reflect a little bit on that, how the movement for internet democracy can go further than the intellectual property and the classic liberal rights for freedom of speech, access to information, etc. Can I pose one more question?
Try.
Yeah. Another one is related to the concept of statelessness, because I think there's a reading of statelessness as transgressing territorial boundaries, but statelessness, as you said before, also can also refer to, as the state can refer to a state of mind. And I think some of the projects you were involved with can be considered to be stateless in the sense of being unsettling. So they're not defined, they're not settled states, they're unsettled and unsettling, especially WikiLeaks has been unsettling for how we think about forms of disclosures. The project you talked about, IBI, has been redefining process of democracy, or is attempting to. So could you reflect a little bit about the projects you were engaged with respect to statelessness, or maybe more the unsettling dimension, and also what's going to be next? Because we are now confronted with the Snowden affair. We realize that surveillance is global. As Jonas also mentioned at the start of the conference, nation states, they cannot limit surveillance processes because intelligence agencies from the US can access the most important traffic access points, but also corporations collect data everywhere and then can easily be handed over. So what kind of new unsettling organizations do we need in the present time?
Excellent questions. In regard to the pirate parties, I think that it's been a lot of focus on the copyright issues, obviously because of the name. For me, it's I've been studying like this summer. I've been sort of trying to tackle the big copyright issue, and it's very difficult because it's so different for each local country. In particular, look at Iceland with its tiny culture and tiny language zone, and it's almost unavoidable that if you want to have culture on the state TV, it's going to be has to be subsidized somehow, or we will lose the language. And so you have to sort of weigh the pros and cons of so many different aspects. And being an artist myself, I think I can have a slight authority in it. I own copyright to my mom's music. She was a known sort of troubadour in Iceland, of course with a political twist. And me and my brother decided we didn't want it, so we created a foundation where we pay for modern day musicians to play her music at a yearly gig or something. And that's a way that I can recycle her legacy without accepting any money myself. It would have been much better for her if she would be paid more when she lived, so she could create more when she was living instead of having to struggle. And I think that's, for me, that would solve a lot if we would not have a 150-year copyright term and would just get properly paid for the pieces we do today. I would like that, somebody pay me a little bit for my poem. I've noticed, I have tried to develop the pirates in Iceland in such a way that we're really engaged in trying to apply ourselves in society, if you know what I mean. Like, not necessarily to have a strong policy about everything. Like, for example, I'm an environmentalist, so I want to have, I look at the Green Party's policy and let them work the policies, and then I just recycle them, or if I see I need to adapt it or change it, but I let them do the work because there's a lot more of them. So you have to be very resilient when you come from a small party. But for me, the most important thing about being a pirate is to try to inspire people to take on some responsibility and some power. So I've been very much engaged, and we've been engaged in creating the platforms for people to bring forward their ideas, what they feel is important that we work on in the parliament. So I am an open Freedom of Information Act for the general public. So if somebody needs a question that they can't get from the state, and I don't mean sort of, traditional Ask Jeeves questions, but questions that or information out of the state, I act as their Freedom of Information Act because they have to answer to a parliamentarian. If people, and I do this through open request forms, and I just, somebody writes on my Facebook wall, why don't you ask for this, blah, 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 or change this law, and I said, oh, no problem, if it fits within my ideology, then I draft bills for people that just write on my Facebook wall. Why don't we make sure Icelanders can vote whenever they have an Icelandic citizenship, even if they don't live there? And we just drafted that. So we're not as much, once you're in there, inside the system, you have to start to apply practicality to the ideology. And for me, the best way to apply that is to try to engage people in it. I don't have the answers. And whenever you actually say that out loud, hey, look, I don't know, people actually appreciate that, because it would be the lies you get from politicians that they're claiming that they know everything. It's a lie. They don't. They really don't. Yeah, I think pirates are morphing and changing, but I think it is a slight problem in trying to have policy on everything, because we can't. We don't know it yet, because it's coming from you. And I'm hoping that the Pirate Party movement can be a movement that is not static, but a living entity that inspire information as well. We need to teach people to protect themselves. And so I was just talking to a journalist the other day, Friday, for a young people thing, magazine. We organized a Snowden event in Iceland. We were reading out his words. It was like a Berlin Literature Festival organized it, and it was sort of done all over the world. And this young person was there, and he's the editor for a magazine, and he was asking what can we do, and I said, the state can't do it for you. Why don't I help you get in touch with people that organize crypto parties and have them teach it in the schools? So we need to take the geeky stuff and make it more mainstream, create different names. Like liquid democracy doesn't say anything. I really don't, it's just liquid democracy. If you say proxy voting, it's still a little bit weird. If you say active votes, you have activated your vote, it makes a little bit more sense. So we have to change the lingo from the geeky into the more mainstream if we're going to get people on our side. So in Iceland, we're the only party, like the only pirate party that got people into the National Assembly. The Internet Party didn't get anybody in New Zealand. The WikiLeaks party didn't get anybody in. And it's a huge disappointment that we don't get more people with this experience and perspective, because there is a use for geeks. Because we understand, like if somebody that doesn't understand how technology works writes laws, it can have very dramatic consequences. Like somebody in Iceland suggested that we would make a shield to protect Iceland from pornography. If I wouldn't have been in Parliament and asked the right questions, we might actually have that, which would slow down the internet. And even in Saudi Arabia, this does not work. So, here I am trying to promote freedom of information, expression, and speech, and some, minister comes in with this.
Birgitta,
yes, sorry.
may I very humbly propose
Yes.
that we keep it here with Lonnike's permission. There will be time after break to return to some of these questions. And thank you, Birgitta, thank you, Lonnike, and I would like to propose we move forward. Thank you.